I'm James Chaser in Hiroshima, Japan, where the G7 summit has come to a close. I'll be looking at the key outcomes of this year's talks.
Protesters took to the streets in Geneva to call for Taiwan's inclusion in the WHA. Taiwan's presidential candidates hit the campaign trail for the 2024 elections, with China relations a key topic of their rallies. Plus,
this underground waterway is located just kilometers away from China in Taiwan's outlying Matsu Islands. Today, we're going to go for a boat ride with the county chief.
a warm welcome to TaiwanPlus News. I'm Betty Chen. Leaders of the G7 nations put on a show of unity over the weekend. Ukraine and an increasingly assertive China topped the agenda in Hiroshima, from where James Trader now reports.
This year's G7 summit has drawn to a close, and Hiroshima's city streets, locked down for much of the past few days, are slowly returning to normal. For many, this will be remembered as the summit where President Zelensky of Ukraine stole the show. He travelled to Hiroshima to secure more diplomatic and military support from the group's leaders. But given the location of this summit in Asia for the first time since 2016, competition with China felt much closer to home, and particularly the challenge it poses to the international order this group of rich democracies view themselves as upholding. But that's an order that the G7 views as increasingly under threat, and in response they've been reaching out to more of those countries that they view as susceptible to Chinese influence. Since the summit's conclusion, I've been looking at what the shifting G7 emphasis could mean for the region and for Taiwan. A united front. That's what G7 leaders aim to convey at the close of their three-day summit in Hiroshima, Japan, their first in Asia since 2016. The group of wealthy democracies meet annually to discuss global affairs. This year, talks focused heavily on the host country's neighbour, China.
China poses the biggest challenge of our age to global security and prosperity. They are increasingly authoritarian at home and assertive abroad. And as the G7 have showed, the UK's response is completely aligned with our allies.
But the other challenger to that order is Russia, still waging war in Ukraine. Ukrainian leader Volodymyr Zelensky travelled to Hiroshima, securing from G7 leaders more F-16 fighter jets and a unified voice of support for his country.
Роботи Великої Сімки, українська тематика центральна, шана до всіх українців, особливо дякую Сімці.
But for G7 states, the principal long-term challenge is China. In Hiroshima, they unveiled new plans to limit the sharing of sensitive technology with Beijing and reduce dependencies on China's economy. US President Joe Biden also said Washington would continue to send arms to Taiwan, the democratic nation Beijing claims as part of its territory and has threatened to take by force.
There is clear understanding among most of our allies that, in fact, if China were to act unilaterally, there would be a response.
Other countries were invited to the summit too, including Australia, South Korea and India. Analysts say that underscores the group's new emphasis away from the Atlantic and toward the Indo-Pacific.
What we're seeing now is, even despite the Russian aggression toward Ukraine, an understanding that over the long run, even that will fade, and the real sort of concern would be how to manage relations with China.
Many view this summit as an inflection point, with more attention being placed on challenges in this part of the world. The next summit to be hosted in Asia isn't for another 7 years, but in that time, the capacity for this region to draw the G7's focus is unlikely to diminish. Andy Sher, Klein Wang and James Chater in Hiroshima, Japan for TaiwanPlus.
The 76th Annual World Health Assembly, the decision-making body of the World Health Organization, kicked off this Sunday without an invite for Taiwan. Protesters in Geneva, Switzerland called for Taiwan's inclusion. Bing Wang reports.
A confrontation on the streets of Geneva the head of the World Health Organization being asked to support Taiwan's inclusion in the World Health Assembly, or WHA, the decision-making body where global health policy is formed.
You know, if member states, we have 194. If they vote in favor, that's their duty, you see?
Yeah, but
so
Taiwan
it's for the member states.
Taiwan was excluded from the 76th World Health Assembly that opened on Sunday. The country has been shut out from annual meetings since 2017 because of China's objections. Before 2017, Taiwan had observer status in the body. Though excluded from the assembly, outside the venue, Taiwan's presence was tangible, with an international group of demonstrators determined to show their support for the country.
Taiwan's meaningful participation in the UN system is not just a political issue. It's a pragmatic one that could address shared challenges faced by the international community. The voice of the Taiwanese people needs to be heard within the UN system, including the WHO.
我们台湾有世界上最好的医疗体系，我们台湾也可以对世界的卫生做出非常好的贡献。
12 of Taiwan's 13 diplomatic allies urged the WHA to invite the country to the forum, along with many Taiwan-friendly countries such as the US, UK, and Canada. But there were not enough to get a Taiwanese delegation into this year's week-long meeting. Taiwan was widely commended for its handling of the COVID-19 pandemic, and its officials believe it can make vital contribution to global discussions on health. With public support and friendly countries continuing to speak in favor of its participation, Taiwan hopes it's only a matter of time before it's let into the World Health Assembly. John Su and Bing Wang for TaiwanPlus.
Taiwan's 2024 national elections are fast approaching. The main candidates for president were hitting the ground running over the weekend, with all three holding campaign rallies. While they spoke about a host of domestic issues, Taiwan's relations with China were looming large over the events. Jeremy Olivier has more.
It's just over half a year before Taiwan's 2024 general election, and presidential hopefuls have been stepping up their campaigns and hitting the trails. The three main candidates for president held rallies on Saturday. In past elections, the key issue dividing candidates has been how to handle Taiwan's relationship with China. That's especially true this year, with the stakes of cross-strait relations extremely high. The ruling Democratic Progressive Party is more wary of China and its intentions. Its candidate, Vice President and Party Chair Lai Ching-te, rejects the idea of one China, which says that Taiwan and China belong to the same country. The main opposition Kuomintang, or KMT, has a friendlier approach to China, something the DPP have zeroed in on. At his rally in Jiayi on Saturday, Lai lashed out at the KMT candidate, New Taipei Mayor Hou You-yi.
國民黨包括伊的候選人接受九二共識，如果接受九二共識這個中國原則，放棄台灣的主權，只不過是一步一步走向專制獨裁懷抱嘛。
The 1992 consensus refers to an unspoken agreement between the KMT and China's Communist Party. Under it, both sides agree on the basic idea of one China. But while the CCP says that this means the People's Republic of China, the KMT maintains that it refers to Taiwan's official name, the Republic of China. Ho hit back at Lai later in the day. Speaking in New Taipei City, he said most people in Taiwan wouldn't accept unification with China being forced on them. He added that Taiwan needs to keep bolstering its self-defense capabilities, which would make it costlier for China to start a war.
不要让国家在爱不爱台湾的无谓纷扰，陷入战争的残酷风险中。一句话，你叫人投互你。我内心直接讲就是用我的性命顾台湾的安全。
Meanwhile, former Taipei mayor and chair of the Taiwan People's Party, Ko Wen-je, held an event in New Taipei's Danshui district to announce his candidacy. Hundreds of supporters attended despite the rain. As mayor, Ko sought exchanges with China through the annual Taipei-Shanghai Forum. During the rally, he said that he would work to maintain cross-strait peace while safeguarding Taiwan's autonomy.
台湾不应该是外媒所说世界最危险的地方，恢复和对岸的沟通管道。我会继续以5个互相的原则，促进两岸和平。
As the candidates begin ramping up activities ahead of the vote, their stances and records on both domestic and foreign policy issues are set to come under the spotlight. But with its increasingly aggressive behavior toward Taiwan, China will likely remain front and center in their campaigns. James Lin and Jeremy Olivier for TaiwanPlus.
To find out more about each party's strategy for the upcoming elections, TaiwanPlus is talking to party insiders. We start with the ruling Democratic Progressive Party. Sam Hui spoke to Lin Bingyou, a DPP councillor in New Taipei.
What are the strengths and weaknesses of the DPP's candidate, Vice President Lai?
民进党的这个总统候选人赖清德主席，他其实是非常有经验，那长期从基层做起他之前是医生，然后做过立法委员，那台南市长、行政院长，那现在担任副总统的职位，所以他的政治工作的经验非常丰富。那比较相对比较有疑虑的点就是说，他曾经说自己是务实的台独工作者。那这一点会让在两岸关系上有一些人会对他因此提出质疑。
What do you think will be the DPP's strategy for the 2024 election?
我觉得民进党还是会按照对手的出招的状况来做调整了所以现在并没有什么很明确的战略。那我只能说，因为我们过去有执政8年的经验，那也还有很多政策持续的推动，所以现在可能会以不变应万变，然后打好基础，争取基层民意。那最后在大的局势上再来看怎么跟国民党做出区隔，来争取选民的青睐。
This year's election seems to be a three-way race between KMT, DPP, and TPP. So who do you think will become Lai's biggest challenger?
我认为现在当然侯友宜是传统上国民党还是比较强的政党了他的立委席次比较多，基层组织也比较强。但是也因为现在有一些中间选民对蓝绿都有所不满，所以柯文哲的后市看涨。那所以我觉得不能说特别谁比较优势，所以我认为就是民进党在要赢得总统大选的话，不会去轻视任何一方给我们的挑战。
That was Lin Bingyou, a DPP city councillor in New Taipei, speaking to our reporter Sam Hui. And stay tuned to TaiwanPlus this week for interviews on the candidates for the main opposition Kuomintang and Taiwan People's Party. After a boom last year, Taiwan's exporters are facing a slump in demand. Official figures show orders in April dropped by almost 20% compared to the same month in 2022. That's more than economists expected. Businesses took just under $43 billion in orders last month. It's the 8th month in a row showing a year-on-year drop. Taiwan's economy ministry is blaming high global inflation and low prices for raw materials. Taiwan's main export is semiconductor chips, and a fall in export orders suggests a rocky market for global electronics. Videos was captured of police beating a man outside a convenience store in the northern city of Taoyuan. The incident started after the man allegedly struck the officers. The violent response has sparked a discussion over whether the police used excessive force. Bing Wang reports.
This security footage shows police in the northern city of Taoyuan beating a man 12 times with a baton. It comes after a 28-year-old personal trainer had an outburst in a convenience store, knocking over merchandise. The store's clerk then called the police. When they arrived, the police pepper sprayed the man to subdue him. He struck back, and the officers suffered bruises and a mild concussion. A second video, seemingly recorded after the first confrontation, appears to show one officer hitting the man repeatedly as he sits on the ground. The videos were widely shared on social media, igniting a debate over the officer's use of force.
骚扰的案件出现了施作强制力过当的一个状况，我们会针对整个过程详加调查，了解清楚后追究相关责任。
According to Amnesty International, police brutality happens often in Taiwan, most notably during the Sunflower Movement in 2014, when students occupied the legislative yuan to protest the passing of a law that favored trade with China.
There's a problem in Taiwan. You can see that when we saw that the police brutality happened during the 2014 the Sunflower Movement, the police who beat the students and the protests.
8 years passed before any accountability for the sunflower incident was established, and only recently the police were required to pay each of the 15 victims $50,000. Taiwanese people generally trust the police, but opinion on their behavior in the most recent incident has been divided, with many on social media criticizing the officers. Those responsible for teaching law enforcement say officers tread a fine line. Officials say a full investigation will be conducted, and the findings will be used to improve police behavior if necessary. Easton Chen and Bing Wang for TaiwanPlus.
Taiwan's last known survivor of sexual slavery committed by the Japanese military during World War II has died aged 92. The Amma Museum, which works to tell the women's stories, confirmed the news on Monday. During the war, more than 2,000 Taiwanese women were forcefully recruited by the Imperial Japanese military to serve as so-called comfort women for soldiers. As many as 200,000 comfort women were taken from occupied territories, including China and South Korea. It's still a source of tension between Japan and its neighbors. Coming up,
today is International Day for Biological Diversity, and I'm looking at how Taiwan is putting a price on nature.
For more stories from Taiwan and around the world, visit TaiwanPlus.com and download the app.
Welcome back. You're watching Taiwan Plus News. Today is International Day for Biological Diversity. Around the world, biodiversity loss is accelerating at a massive rate. In Taiwan, one of the most biodiverse places on Earth, authorities are trying to protect it by putting a monetary value on nature. Sally Jensen reports.
Taiwan and its surrounding waters are blessed with a huge amount of biodiversity. The island has a species-to-land area ratio 150 times the world average. It already protects a massive 30% of its nature, and now the Forestry Research Institute has valued those nature reserves at around $2 billion. This takes into account the ecological and biological benefits of Taiwan's abundant forests.
保育之外，它还有包括环境的啦、水土保持啊，还包括一些水土涵养。
But its value could be even higher if other social benefits are taken into account.
社会价值啊，包括像我们现在谈森林疗愈谈油气、谈休闲。
Some environmentalists hope that putting a price on Taiwan's nature will help its continued preservation. They say it is the only way to make destructive industries pay for the damage they create.
森林的开发或是生物多样性的损失，它会造成的就是不管是微气候，或者是水源涵养，或者是国土保安这类的灾难的这些部分。如果这个价值算出来之后，其实业者就应该要投入相等的价值来做这个生物多样性的基本的维持。
But the Forestry Research Institute also says it's difficult to put a price on the full value of wildlife and the ecology. The Institute's Wu Mengling says the ecology is priceless. The value of biodiversity must take into account three elements: ecology, life, and productivity. Habitats, rainfall, and climate change should all be accounted for. Countries around the world are putting a price on nature and wildlife in an effort to protect them. But placing monetary value on the planet's biodiversity may do little to change people's perceptions and could reinforce the belief that nature is a commodity which can be bought and sold. Howard Zhang and Sally Jensen in Taipei for TaiwanPlus.
Saturday was May 20th, a date that probably has no special meaning for most English speakers. But for many couples in Taiwan and other Chinese-speaking countries, it's an important occasion. To understand why, our reporter Sandy Chi went down to a household registration office in Taipei, where scores of lovebirds were putting their love on paper.
A moment full of love and happiness. This couple just registered their marriage on May 20th. It's a popular day for couples to officially become husband and wife, because when spoken in Mandarin, May 20th sounds similar to I love you.
其实台湾人就取个那个吉祥啦，哈，就是吉庆，所以的话会用挑这一天特别来，那就双方表示对对方的爱意。
Household registration officers say that over the past few years, the number of marriage registrations taking place on May 20th has been increasing. This reached its peak in 2022, when more than 800 couples in Taipei registered on this day.
台湾人的习俗2的话，双双对对，尤其是家长可能会特别挑这个好的日子、好的吉祥的数字。
This year, May 20th fell on a weekend, so most people were off work and free to enjoy the day. To help couples set their anniversary on this date, registration offices in parts of Taiwan invited lovebirds to stop by earlier in the week. But one couple decided to do things a little bit differently.
我们想要选的是521，我们想要520多一点，我爱你多一点，521。
Just over 250 couples registered their marriage in Taipei for May 20th this year. Though less than a third of the 2022 number, the day that says I love you is still one of the most popular on the calendar for couples who want to make things official. Ricky and Sandy Chi for TaiwanPlus.
The international media often portrays Taiwan as a hotspot for regional tension. Today, Andrew Ryan travels to the outlying islands of Matsu, just off the shore of China, to find out how it's also a budding hotspot for tourism.
A secret underground waterway for military ships, a creative coffee that tastes like a strong local liquor called gaoliang, and a glow-in-the-dark phenomenon that could give the Northern Lights a run for its money. These are just some of the things you'll find in the outlying islands of Matsu. Now, late spring is one of the toughest times of the year to travel to Matsu. A lot of flights get canceled due to bad weather. But spring is also the best season to catch a glimpse of the blue tears. So we're going to find our way to Matsu no matter what it takes. So we were supposed to take a plane to Matsu, but it turns out that Matsu gets a lot of fog. So instead, we have to go there by boat. How long is it going to take? 3 hours. See you in Matsu. The official name of Matsu is Lianjiang County. It's a chain of 36 islands just off the southeastern coast of China. The closest point is just 9 kilometers away, making it an important frontline post in early confrontations between Taiwan and China. When tensions eased in the early 90s, this once forbidden outpost opened to visitors, but you can still see soldiers and hear the sounds of artillery practice. For our first stop in Matsu, the county chief brings us to an old military site that he says every visitor should see.
这个地方叫做北海坑道，北海坑道大概民国57年，军方在这边的时候开始兴建。它当初最主要的目的是两岸对峙的时候呢，这边做地下码头。
It took nearly 3 years to create this 640-meter waterway. Teams of soldiers worked round the clock using dynamite to blast their way through the granite. It was hard work, and lives were lost in the process.
早期的时候，这个地方是马祖最神秘的一个区块，一般人是不能进来的，因为外围有部队守着。那渐渐的开放以后呢？ 那现在就把它开发成观光。
At low tide, you can walk along the edges, but at high tide, the path is underwater, so the county chief invites me on a boat ride instead. Back in the day, these waters could hold 120 boats. Today, the county chief says the waters contain a lot of fish and a lot of iPhones. And while there's not much to see, there is plenty to hear.
这个辅音句
好棒哦，
好棒哈，
很像威尼斯，
就是威尼斯没有我们漂亮，
有没有？Now, the gondoliers in Matsu don't usually sing, but you can catch a proper concert in these tunnels, and that's just one of the creative ways that Matsu is moving beyond its military past. Alex Chen, Devin Tsai, Peachy Drong, and Andrew Ryan for TaiwanPlus. Coming up in part 2, we visit one of the tallest Matsu statues in the world to find out what the goddess of the sea has to do with these islands. Plus, further ahead in our series, will we find what we came here to see?
That was part 1 of Andrew's trip to Matsu in our series, Where's the County Chief Taking Us? We'll have a new episode for you every day this week. Taiwan placed its countryside landscape center stage at this year's Venice Architecture Biennale. The designer of the Taiwan exhibition used the space to best show off the team's work.
用一个比较大张的桌子，然后它像是一条很漂亮的极简的水平线飘在这个展场当中，去贯穿整个动线，所以每一个小房间都被我们贯穿起来，然后变成是一个流动的状态。
Curator Tsai Ing-wen says in previous years, Taiwan's display focused on elite architects, but this year the spotlight is on work done by students. This is also the first year that 5 schools teamed up to create Taiwan's display. This is the 18th Venice Architecture Biennale. The theme this year is the Laboratory of the Future. Thank you for watching TaiwanPlus News. Finally, we'll leave you with images of a Taiwan food festival taking place at the Tokyo's Skytree Tower. I'm Betty Chen. Take care and see you next time.